Good evening, everybody. Yeah, my name's Jonathan. I'm an actor, trained as an actor, although I have to do quite a bit of teaching as well to pay the bills. That's the nature of acting sometimes. This is a fantastic event, by the way. Marsha invited me, thank you very much, and didn't explain, I didn't give her a chance to explain too much about what the concept was, but now I'm thinking, oh, what I've got here is nothing compared to the wondrous type. So if I get invited again, listening to these subjects today, I've got a dozen more ideas for speeches. So if I do you get invited more than once?
Yeah.
I'll say what I've got to say, and you may not want to invite me again anyway. But yeah, my name's Jonathan. I trained as an actor, and I remember soon out after drama school, I was called to an audition. It's freelance in the UK. It's happening here a bit in Russia now in the theatrical world, but by that I mean many actors here. I met an actor here when I first came over to Russia, and he said to me, "Oh, what theatre company do you work for?" I said, "Well, I work for the National Theatre, I work for the Royal Shakespeare Company, I work for Coventry Belgrade, I work for Channel Theatre," and he had this strange look at me. And I found out later that Russians, because he'd been in the same theatre company his entire career, at the Mali Theatre. And so with me reeling off all these different jobs, I didn't realise at the time he was thinking, "You must be a really bad actor, you keep on getting kicked out of jobs and having to find a new theatre company." But the truth is, in the UK, you end up being freelance. You end up working for a contract for 3, maybe 6 months, and then out looking for new work after that. So I was new out of drama school, and I was called to a TV commercial audition. It was going to be an information thing on TV. And I said to my agent, "Okay, what should I wear? What's it about?" He said, "Well, you're going to be an airline pilot. That's what you're going to do." So I think I probably wore a jacket very similar to this. You do that when you go for an audition. You kind of dress like you think the character might be. I was once called for an audition. I said, "What it's going to be?" So you're going to be a beer drinker. So after that, I was like, "Well, everyone drinks beer. I mean, you all could be beer drinkers here." But I sort of thought of something to wear for that. Anyway, airline pilot. So I think I probably put on a tie and thought I'll go like this, and I sort of rehearsed. There was no. I said, "Is there any script?" He said, "No, it's all going to be improvised. You're just going to improvise, go with what the director said." So I thought, okay, what did pilot say? So I practiced in my room. We're now, ladies and gentlemen, we're now flying at a height of 30,000 feet. If you look outside your right wing mirror, window, you can see. So I practiced all that, and I got to the audition, sat down. The director said, "Oh, great, Jonathan, nice to meet you. If you could just sit on that chair. Just, can you just be an airline pilot?" So I said, yeah, of course. And I sat down and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, please, we are expecting some turbulence. If you could please put on your seatbelts." And it was going quite well, I thought. And he said, after a very short while, he said, "Okay, now can you pretend that you are slowly turning into a chicken?" And so I was like, okay. And I hadn't prepared for this. I would have gone and researched. I would have looked at chickens to see their movements and their sounds. So I started. It was just, and you sort of occasionally coming out and then going back into the dialogue about we'll soon be flying into the temperature and the where we're going. And anyway, so I did it, and I didn't get the job. As you can tell, my chicken wasn't that good. I subsequently found out it was a drugs awareness thing, guys. 20 years ago, they were trying to prove to you that if you smoked cannabis when you were in your teenage years, when you grow up to this respectable age of being an airline pilot, the bad effects might kick in, and you might be flying an aeroplane, and drugs will get their comeback and turn you into a chicken. That was the idea of the advert. But it taught me a lesson, and something about acting, about the willingness you have to throw yourself into a situation. You have to be there ready to create any situation or environment as possible. So a few months ago, I was lucky enough to be invited to partake in a movie. They needed some English voices. Divietka, have I pronounced this right? Divietka. It's at the cinemas now. No one's seen it? This is a bit of a spoiler alert. We filmed for 8-9 days up in St. Petersburg, and I'd read the script, and it said, my character does this, that, and the other, blah, 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 and at the end, blows up. So I thought, I can't really prepare for that too much. I'm not sure how they're going to do the blowing up. But I found out that I was going to be on a stage, I get shot, a stunt actor had to do me falling off the stage. And I landed, and they said, "Okay, we're going to need you for this bit, because there's going to be some close-ups, so we need to see your face." And they strapped me into this box, and they had fireworks. There was one located very perilously just there, but at different sides. And they said, we can only do this shot once or twice because it's expensive putting these fireworks in, and we're going to let the fireworks off, and you've just got to act as you would act if you were blowing up. So I kind of, oh God, what do I do? So I just tried screaming, and they had to retake the shot just because they wanted different angles on it. My whole point with this is, as actors, you're expected to throw yourselves into situations as much as possible. Believe things that aren't real. I've had students once when I said, oh, let's try, I said, let's create a scene. You're all going to imagine you're running away from a great big monster. There's the scene. And young actors, students were going, no, but if you're in a film, you kind of got the monster there, so you can react to that. And I said, well, no. When you're in the film set, you won't always have something to react and respond to. You are going to have a green screen behind you, and you are going to have to create the moment itself. My God! Oh God! And then do whatever. And when that director says action, and you, sorry to scare you there. Was it really that believable? Bless you. If you're half-hearted, monster! Cut. It becomes a lot of pressure that you've got to do these moments correctly. And a lot of my theatre training, I didn't realise at the time, was to sort of immerse yourselves in these moments. And it's this that I think is what I love about theatre, that you have to believe the moment you're in. You have to, it's called suspension of disbelief. The idea that an audience will come and watch something that isn't true, but believe in it. It's like you arrive at the door, you take off your disbelief, you hang it up, and you come back to the theatre. So I'm going to believe what I see in front of me. But actors have to have the tools strongly enough that they can make the audience hang up their disbelief. So it's how you get those situations. Somebody described to me once that when you go and watch a film, you know that those events aren't happening. You know. There's actually two things, how did they describe it? You definitely know aren't happening in a movie. One, if somebody is killed, you know full well they haven't really been killed, because that would be a pretty inexpensive way to use actors in that way. There's a second thing that people do in films that isn't actually happening. Any guesses what that might be? It's normally making love, having sex. It's, that would normally, depending on what, imagining you're talking about the, thank you very much, yes, depends what movies you're watching, but no, generally in main films, those things aren't happening. But the actor has to create that moment, and it can be very difficult. I've never had to do very intimate scenes, but actors that said, oh, I've got a scene today where I've got to kiss the person and sort of act with them as if I've been with them all my life, and in fact, I've never met them before. This is going to be our first day-to-day working on the set together. So my point is that you have to totally believe in those stories. An actor's job is to allow the audience to suspend their disbelief, that they can actually buy into the stories. And stories to me are very, very important. This is where I'm going to go off my script a bit, because after hearing some of the more profound things some of you have been saying in these talks today, stories, I think, are very important for mankind. If any of you read the book by Yuval Noah Harari, an Israeli writer, it's called Sapiens. It's a fascinating book on the sort of evolution of humankind. It tells the whole story of life on Earth in, I don't know, less than 1,000 pages. And he puts storytelling as a very important part of humans' development. Even if it starts on a practical level, that I can say to you, by the way, I found a tree over there with lots of apples on, I can't eat them all, so go and help yourself. Or if I had to say to you, just be, when you go around the corner, there's some lions around there, so just be very, very careful. And he bases his whole thing, starting from that, to the other stories we tell. He talks about corporations, companies being stories. Companies don't really exist. Gazprom isn't a real thing, it's a story. He talks about nations being a story. He talks about religion being a story, but it's a story we can all feed into, and they've all helped with human development. And I think if you look at it from the earliest times, man has been telling these stories, even if they're quite true, about the apples or the lions around the corner. Other stories have evolved for mankind to express its opinion and feelings towards other people. There's been some lovely talks here today, and my thing with some very honest talks. The last two were particularly honest, and for me, theatre has been a way that we as humans can look at a scenario, a situation. We can see the events in other people's lives and feel that we're not alone. We can appreciate loneliness, sadness, feelings of jealousy, anxiety. All of those human feelings can be shown through theatre and through films now, because that's another form of storytelling. And I think that human connection is very, very important, that expressing of ideas. I'm going to move on a bit, because can I have the first slide? Because I was just going to quickly do some practical thing here now. I've only got 2 slides, by the way. And it was just take a bit of text and see how this is more now for public speaking, the good things that you can, some techniques on public speaking. And I've taken it from a play I'm sure you all know, Hamlet, by William Shakespeare. He has a famous scene in this when he, but you all know there's the setup that Hamlet's father has died in mysterious circumstances. His uncle has become king, and within a few days of his father's death, his uncle has married his mum. He has a beautiful scene when he talks about, you know, the funeral is barely over before the marriage ceremony restarts. But he can't prove it, and it causes him huge anxiety. Elements of suicide come into this. I mean, he has feelings to be or not to be. It seems to be very much a suicidal speech. But he then invites some theatre players. This is the power of theatre. It can reveal the truth. And he says to them, I want you to play this play so truthful. I want you to play this play in front of my uncle. And it's going to recreate the events of my father's death. And if you act it well enough, it will be proven. My uncle will react in such a way that he will prove his guilt and his involvement in the crime. So I just thought I'd throw it up here for a start, and just picking it up with some things that you may be able to use in public speaking. Speak the speech, I pray you, as I pronounced it to you, trippingly on the tongue. I had some lovely talks up here, trippingly. Move the speech along. Keep it lively and bright and energized. But if you mouth it, as many of your players do, I had as lief the town crier spoke my lines. Don't be so over the top that people don't believe you. So he's saying you have to have truth and reality behind it. Nor do not saw the air too much with your hands thus, but use all gently. Now I'm probably guilty of this today, moving your hands too much. You see speeches and he's talking about, no, compose yourself, relax yourself and focus yourself. For in the very torrent, tempest, and as I may say, whirlwind of passion. I'm going to pick on these lines very, very briefly. If ever you're giving public speaking or in a play, we will pick up on play with every word. Make every word important, even if it's colouring it. Think of what's the difference between a torrent, a tempest, and a whirlwind, and play those words almost onomatopoeically. You must acquire and beget a temperance that may give it smoothness. He then says, be not too tame either. So you can't as a speaker always be too quiet like this or too dull in the presentation. You have to find that balance. So be not too tame either, but let your own discretion be your tutor. You should, what's the word? You almost patrol yourself to think, are you engaging the audience? Are the audience listening? Are they on telephones? Is that my fault or their fault? And I think it's often the performance fault. Suit the action to the word to the action, with this special our step, not the modesty of nature. I'm just going to jump to the end of it. Suit the action to the word and the word to the action. Make sure that how you're saying an emotion and a feeling matches what that feeling is. We had this big one at drama school when it said, you know, if you say to somebody, I love you, you're going to say love with the word suiting the action. It would be very odd if you said to somebody, I love you. It wouldn't be matching at all, or I hate you. Simple things like that, but really finding the power of the words and using those words and getting the most from them. And finally, as I think all of you have done beautifully today, going to the very end, both at the first and now, was and is the purpose is to hold, as 'twere, the mirror up to nature. And I think that's so true of what I find the most powerful works that I see, the most powerful talks, the most powerful theatre and films are ones that you do notice nature in there. There's something in there that you can relate to and respond to. That is my, I don't want to overrun your time, that's my speech. I've been a bit rambling in places, but an idea to show why I think theatre and the arts will for long have a central place in human culture, because I think it is part of our inception, and the idea that when we became bigger communities than 150, this is in Harari's book, humans started to split up a bit, and stories are what became a cohesive form, a cohesive element to allow the development of mankind. And so without more continued stories, talking to each other, talking across cultures, talking across race and gender, that humankind, I think, can prosper and go from strength to strength. Thank you very much. Sorry, very quickly. Somebody else did a plug for their thing, so I can do a quick plug. We normally do contemporary British drama, modern plays from the last 5-6 years, but we are at Rant Theatre on December the 30th and 31st doing our first classical production of Christmas Carol. There's a fantastic story. He reinvented the spirit of Christmas in England, at least. And Moscow English Theatre. Tickets will be going on sale very, very soon. It's an interactive performance. If you get, it sounds wrong, the cheaper tickets, you have to stand, but you get to dance and interact with the actors. Shakespeare's Globe Theatre is now having this, showing that even in contemporary theatre, an audience standing can still enjoy it. Hope to see you there. Thank you very much.